and İslam'da.
I wanted to talk a little bit about ISIS because there seems to be a little bit of confusion. Not confusion. I think there's an intentional, coordinated effort between Turkey and the United States to free some ISIS members so that they can reoccupy Syria, justifying our continued presence in Syria. Think about it. Think about it. ISIS is something that we've stoked. At the very least, we've armed, we've funded them, we've taken care of them. So now that they're imprisoned in Syria, why wouldn't we go with a plan like that? We being, not me, our government and the way it works, especially the CIA with the funding of Mujahideen, not Mujahideen there, al-Nusra, which is an Al-Qaeda. You know, Al-Qaeda's been our friend, believe it or not. Most people I would be talking to probably believe it because it's a proven fact. What's not a, quote, proven fact is that Al-Qaeda was our friend on 9/11. But it is a proven fact that those buildings came down via demolition. That's a proven fact. So where does that put Al-Qaeda? You think they planted the munitions to bring those buildings down? That's a ridiculous notion. So who did it? It would have to be our own people. From the looks of it, and I don't have proof of this, but it looks to me like the Mossad might have done the munitions rigging. There's less, I don't know, there's less loose ends that way. You know, they're not in this country. You know, this country, they might leak it easily. Mossad is pretty tight-lipped. It was quite an operation. There was an operation that looked like it could be that. Something was that because they were brought down by nanothermite, which is a military-grade incendiary. And that's a proven fact. They've proven it at the universities. Not only have they proven that those buildings had to come down via demolition, but they've proven that the the debris all around the World Trade Centers has nanothermite in it, which is not something that just occurs. It's not possible to be something else. So they came down, and it wasn't that jet that brought them down. That wasn't possible. That jet wouldn't burn. Jet fuel doesn't burn hot enough to melt iron, and nothing burns hot enough except for nanothermite to bring those things down into their own footprint, like they did at free fall rate. Anyways, I digress a little bit. Al-Qaeda was our friend, always has been. And I say that begrudgingly. I'm not saying it like, hey, they're our friend. No, it's not that Al-Qaeda is the bad guy. It's the person commanding them to do the dirty work. And those people are Project for the New American Century.
This country was taken over by a group of people with a policy coup. Wolfowitz and Cheney and Rumsfeld, and you could name a half dozen other collaborators from the Project for a New American Century. They wanted us to destabilize the Middle East, turn it upside down, make it under our control.
Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz, Scooter Libby, all the way up to John Forbes and Lord Rothschild. They're all signatories to the Project for the New American Century, which was a non-profit think tank in Washington. So all their stuff is available. Just look on Wikipedia, it's there. In fact, if you don't know what to look at their document that's called Rebuilding America's Defenses. And that will spell out what they meant to do. And then if you look up General Wesley Clark, who talked about that they planned to bring down 7 countries in 5 years.
This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Which 7 countries were they? All the ones that have been downed in the Middle East, all of them. Syria and Iran are on that list. They haven't taken them down, but they're trying. So it's not like Syria or Iran did anything wrong. It's that they want to take them down and control the Middle East. That's the truth. So Al-Qaeda is our friend, and so ISIS is our proxy army in Syria. So why wouldn't they release the fighters? Why wouldn't they? Because it gives us an excuse to stay, and we don't have one if they're defeated. We haven't overthrown Bashar al-Assad, and that is the entire... It's been the idea from the get-go, because we want to cut off Russia's natural gas pipeline to West Europe, and it goes through Syria, and Bashar al-Assad will protect it, and if we throw another president in, replace somebody else, they'd be willing to let us shut it off. And that's the lifeblood of Russia. Okay, take care. Might as well fully spill the beans. Here's the rest. So, not only did Al-Qaeda not plan and execute 9/11, but George W. Bush was put in office. As we know, he did not win that election. John Bolton was the one of the people who was very responsible for the recount in Florida. He was there. And he was very much helping shut down the recount because he knew that W was going to lose if the recount happened. So that was part of it, though. They did a lot to put him in office. They also messed with the voting machines. They messed with districts. They did a lot of different tricks to get George W. Bush in office. We kind of know a lot of that. But what isn't spoken of much is what happened afterward and why he was there. Bush was way more involved in 9/11 than I ever thought. I think his name is George Tenet. I know Tenet's his last name. Went to Bush's ranch twice before 9/11. One time was 2 weeks before. He told the people investigating under oath, he said that he had never been to Bush's ranch.
Did you ever mention it, for instance, to the president? You're briefing the president from August 6th on.
I didn't see the president. I was not in briefings with him during this time.
And then in his book, he talked about being at Bush's ranch, but never any arrest or prosecution for his provedly lying to a grand jury. So there's a lot of manipulation going on. Something like half of the people on the NIST who were doing the investigation, something like half said that it was bogus. Half said that it was fraudulent. Now that should tell you everything you need to know about it being absolutely not above board. But there's more, but if that's not enough to just say that Bush is absolutely involved, and he may have had that kind of bewildered look on his face, but so Dick Cheney was in a perfect place to pull off what he pulled off, which was stopping the Pentagon from shooting down a jet coming straight at it, verbally telling the Secretary of Transportation not to fire, or in the presence of the Secretary of Transportation. And that's what the Secretary of Transportation had to say about it on the stand.
They had that order given, I think it was by the president, that authorized the shooting down of commercial aircraft that were suspected to be controlled by terrorists. Were you there when that order was given?
No, I was not. I was made aware of it during the time that the airplane coming in to the Pentagon. There was a young man who would come in and say to the vice president, the plane is 50 miles out. The plane is 30 miles out. And when it got down to the plane is 10 miles out, the young man also said to the vice president, do the orders still stand? And the vice president turned and whipped his neck around and said, of course the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary? Well, at the time, I didn't know what all that meant. And
The flight you're referring to is the
flight that came into the Pentagon.
He called off shooting it down. Of course, Dick Cheney says he was never even there, that he wasn't even in there at that time. Donald Rumsfeld was in the other end of the building. They secured that side of the building so that it could take a jet strike. All the people investigating the $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon were right there and got hit by the jet. They all got killed, and so did all the evidence. $2.3 trillion, never accounted for. And Donald Rumsfeld walked away. He was even on the Tonight Show.